Welcome to the Grand Strand Weekly Web Chat. It's the final week of the regular season for Class 4A schools, but for the rest, the playoffs start tonight, or maybe tomorrow. This is taped on a Thursday. As we do each and every week here on the Weekly Web Chat, we have two guys to talk about all the action, two goofballs. they're like here, first time on a TV set. Ian Guerin of the Sun News, Matt Paris of ESPN Radio. Look at this. I got all my brackets.
Yeah, you're set, man.
This is like March Madness times 5.
It's like
Literally
the first time I've seen you bring this much paper in.
Well, I'm already confusing myself because there's a lot to keep track of. We have two Class A brackets with 16 teams. Then we have, two Class 2A brackets, and there's roughly, 24 teams in each?
Right. And
something like that.
And they wanted to do a separate Class 3A title this year, too. That one got pushed back for a couple of years.
Thank goodness, because this is actually the smartest bracket out of all of these, in my opinion.
Right.
Anyway, that's our opinion. And, it probably diminishes what this first week of playoffs is for Class 1A and 2A schools, in my opinion. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think, everybody getting in, there's goods and bads to it, on both sides. I mean, yeah, you want your team to have playoff experience and all that, but at the same time, these coaches that are talking about, we just want to get into the playoffs and see what we can do, if everybody's getting in, what does that experience really mean for the kids?
It's watered down, everything except 3A, and we actually have some fun 3A matchups to talk about.
Right.
So before we, look into those, let's look back at Week 10 of the high school football season, late October football. We're getting into November football, and a lot of Grand Strand games were a bunch of blowouts. Sockasty 35-0, Myrtle Beach 55-0 over North Myrtle. Conway comes back to beat Sumter 34-24. Not to be forgotten is that 26-26 tie. Obviously, I have a terrible typing finger. It's 26-20. Carvers Bay won on a last-second thriller. Dillon beat Waccamaw, and then we'll just go ahead and throw the next scoreboard up if you can, Nelson. Loris over Ainer. I thought Ainer could give him a tight game. Loris run away with that in the second half. West Florence playing their most complete game of the season, their coach said, defeated Carolina Forest 44-7. Lake Marion over Andrews, and Green Sea Floyd's picked up a win to get to
3-7.
3-7 on the season, 2-3 in region play, but they did not make the playoffs. Matt, what did you see from this last week of high school football? Sockasty 35-0. They could have run it up to 70 if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think Tim Renfro knows he's got a lot to play for in the playoffs. He's going to rest some of his starters later on in the game. Still, it's a rivalry game. Throw up some points there. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of blowouts, though. I think a lot of teams either resting starters or kind of, other teams maybe not playing as hard, or a lot of this was settled beforehand with the Thursday night game, especially in 3A and things like that. So it's kind of setting the stage for the playoffs to begin. So
I guess the most exciting game was our Grand Strand game of the week, Conway against Sumter. Yep. When I was looking at that last week's schedule, I was like, what are we going to pick for? And you threw that game out there, and it turned out to be a good one.
Yeah, I was out there. I was surprised by it, just how ineffective Conway was in the first half, and then just how overwhelming they were after halftime. I mean, without their best player, who was just named to finalists for Mr. Football. I mean, for them to have that kind of performance, especially defensively in the second half, I mean, it's something that I think they're going to build on. I think they take that into the game against Carolina Forest this week. I think they take it into playoffs. I think they've got a very, very good shot of winning that region overall, getting a home game, getting a decent seed. Those are things that Mikhail Moody has not had since he became the starter, his freshman year. So I think they've put themselves in position to do some things. They need to complete it on Friday night.
Conway, because they're kind of like the Philadelphia Eagles is what I say. They can be the best team. They can score at will anytime they want because they have all the talent and all the speed and all. And then other times it just seems like, they're a tale of two halves. So I don't know. And, I mean, you got to commend the performance of Sawyer Jordan.
Yep.
As Chuck calls him, Sawdog comes in and tears it up. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of adversity to come through. Obviously, Mikhail Moody, sitting for this game, but Ethan Smith coming in, giving it his all, breaks his collarbone. That's got to be painful. And then the coach's son coming in, throwing some touchdowns, getting things going. It's to be commended for the whole team. It's a big team effort there.
He actually only threw 3 passes, but it was more of just his clock management. He also pinned Sumter deep with a punt. I mean, he was just kind of doing everything right, and his the one long pass that he threw, it was kind of just basically a Hail Mary where Malcolm Green jumped up over a shorter defensive back and caught it. But it was more about clock management. It was more about just making sure that you don't make any mistakes, and all that momentum that they had in that, after, Ethan started in the third quarter, just keep it going. I think he did a spectacular job.
Not to be forgotten is the running of Jaquel Crossland.
Right.
You probably have the stats, but I mean, he had 2 key touchdowns to, get that one. So he's kind of burst onto the scene this past week.
Yeah, it ended up being about 185 yards, I think, 3 touchdowns.
And we really hadn't said his name up to this point.
Right. Well, and they've been a split back, kind of running back by committee thing for the past 3 years. So none of their running backs have really done a whole lot there. They have a couple guys who rush for 400 or 500 yards every year, and that seems like it's about it. And then he almost hits 200. So.
What year is he?
He's a senior.
He's a senior. Well, just Conway team's going to look a lot different next year,
right?
Than anything we're seeing this year. But that's all next year. Let's look at not only this year but this week coming up. Our games of the week for the playoff / Week 11. South versus West is our PD game of the week. That one's the 4A Region 6. A big one there. It's not the decider because if South wins, they
win the region.
As long as Conway defeats Carolina Forest like we all think will happen. But if West wins, they need Carolina Forest to defeat Conway.
Correct.
Not very likely. So Conway basically needs...
Conway needs West Florence to beat South Florence, and they need to beat Carolina Forest, and Conway will be region champs. If South Florence wins, they are region champs. If West Florence wins, they need Carolina Forest to beat Conway, and West Florence will be the region champs. Not to be forgotten, all that is the 4th place team right now in that region is Sumter. They need Conway to win, and they need South Florence to win. Or I'm sorry, West Florence to win, and then they get in as the third seed from that region. So you got 4 teams vying for 3 spots. Everybody's going to be watching everybody else.
My educated guess is West Florence beats South Florence for the first time in a long time. I just think they're a better team, and then I obviously think Conway is going to win, so I think Conway will be your region champs. That's my opinion. Anyway, let's go to the Grand Strand game of the week. Manning taking on Myrtle Beach. We don't talk too much about Manning. They're a team pretty far away, buried down south of the PD area. But they played in a very tough 3A Region 6, gave everyone a run for their money. Hartsville was playing with heavy hearts, and, in that game right after Ronald Rouse passed away, and Manning, made that a 1-score game. So this is a team, when you look at the playoff picture combined, 3A Region 7 against 3A Region 6, we're really going to find out how good these Grand Strand teams are because on paper, these 3A Region 7 teams are pretty good, Matt.
Yeah, they are very good. And like Myrtle Beach, obviously, playing at home, they're difficult to beat with anybody. So I think that the Seahawks probably get away with this one, but I don't know a lot about Manning. But like you said, it's a tough region they play in, so it's going to be an interesting matchup.
I can tell you one thing. Robbie Briggs is the head coach at Manning, and if you've ever talked to the guy, he's kind of like a Bradley Adams type of coach, and he's hard-nosed, and he'll have his players disciplined enough to be ready for an attack like Myrtle Beach. They're going to have the athletes, I think. Manning's full of athletes. They have a guy that I think last year that signed with the Gamecocks, and so they have the athletes to compare. But can you game plan for Myrtle Beach in 1 week?
Yeah, I don't know that a lot of teams can. We try not to project too much, but I think this is the game that if Myrtle Beach, all they need to do is just get through this. They don't have to look too impressive. They just have to advance the next round because the next couple potential matchups on that bracket look awfully favorable for the Seahawks. That said, they need to come out. They need to score a touchdown or 2 early against Manning. They don't want to be in one of those games where the opponent gets to hang around and they get to see, what's going to happen in the 4th quarter. They need to put some points up and then rely on the fireworks and and the crowd advantage and all of that stuff. They need to make something happen early and not waste too much time.
Yeah, I think we all would think Myrtle Beach is the favorite. I guess I'd be shocked if Myrtle Beach lost. Would you guys be shocked? Or do you see that this could be a potential upset?
I think the upset could happen. I don't know if I'd say shocked about it. Too many games. I think I'd be more shocked if Carolina Forest beat Conway, something like that. But Manning's obviously a good team. You don't go 7-3 and play some of the teams that they did without having some talent. They've been tested in the region. They had to play Marlboro, played them close. I think it was a 2-touchdown game. there at the end. Almost beat Hartsville. Obviously, Hartsville had some, emotional issues of their own, that week. They have played some teams, so I don't think there's going to be that shock and awe factor of coming into Doug Shaw.
All right, let's look at the other games from this playoff first week and week number 11 of the high school football season for Class 4A teams. Hemingway taking on Carvers Bay. These schools are 8 miles apart or so, and Carvers Bay won the regular season meeting. Kind of a crazy Class A Division I. You have Carvers Bay, who lost to Johnsonville. They get the 1 seed. Johnsonville undefeated, 10-0, beat Carvers Bay, the 1 seed, gets the 4 seed.
It's all about strength of schedule.
I understand that.
Carvers Bay's schedule was about as hard as you're going to find of any Class A team in the state, and all they did with it was go 9-1.
Yeah.
So I think
they deserve
it. Right.
Carvers Bay, they're the favorite.
Yes.
King Street at Ainer. I'll let you take that one, Matt. Who's the favorite there?
I would take Ainer, I think.
All right, then. So we're just trying to get past these Class A matchups because we pretty much know what they are. Crestwood at Socastee. This one's an interesting one because it's the 4th seed in Region 6 of 3A against the champion Socastee, and I think Socastee's just a tough team to prepare for in 1 week.
Yeah, I think anytime you have to prepare for a triple option and you have 5 days of practice to do it, you better have somebody who can at least act the part of Hunter Renfro, and I'm not sure there's anybody in South Carolina that can do that. The kid runs it with such efficiency. He runs it very, very fast. Teams just don't have a way to prepare for it. And even though, as Tim Renfro said, that Crestwood might be the best 4th seed in the state, there's still I don't see any way that they beat Socastee and even really make this a single score game.
Matt, what neutralizes it? What kind of team would neutralize Socastee in your opinion?
Well, it'd have to be, Socastee's got so many ways that they can hurt you, both through the air and on the ground with that triple option attack. It would have to be somebody with a defense that could fill all those holes and account for everybody, a very quick defense, a very disciplined defense that would slow them down enough to be able to even out the matchup, I think. And like Ian said, I don't know if there's a team that can do that.
I think a defense would have to have 2 pretty solid defensive tackles up front.
Yep.
If they can stop that Socastee dive play, I think it increases your chances. But they just gouge teams, play after play with that. We saw it in the Myrtle Beach game. We saw it in the Georgetown game. It's not these big flashy runs, and it's not Hunter Renfro, throwing a pitch to his tailback 6 yards downfield. It's them dive plays up the middle, and them doing that up the middle over and over again, and it just wears teams down until, like Matt said, until an opponent has people that can fill, all 4 holes on the offensive line and guard the edges. You're probably going to see Socastee win a few games here.
Yeah, Socastee, their second round matchups either, if they get past Crestwood, they would be playing Berkeley or Midland Valley. That's a 2-3 matchup there. And then if they get past that, most likely it would be Hartsville, which would be a very intriguing matchup in 2 weeks because you have a Hartsville team that's very balanced. They can throw the ball. They're not afraid to, they have some size up front, so that could possibly,
And that would be at Socastee as well. So
be.
Socastee's got the best home field advantage of any team in the lower state in Class 3A. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know.
Yeah.
Down here in 3A,
they would have it because it's whoever the top team is.
The higher seed.
Ooh. What if Hanahan ended up going right here?
It'd be whoever. It's going to be Socastee no matter what. It's just how the region shakes up. They shuffle it up. The high school league does.
All right, so I'm totally confused as well.
We'll edit that out for you guys. Don't worry.
Probably not. But all right, other games that we will be going on. Loris, by the way, they have a bye this week, and they will be taking on the winner of. You probably know this at the top of your head, Ian. They will be taking on the winner of the Battery Creek Waccamaw game, which will be on the next page, I believe. Conway at Carolina Forest. Talked about that for a second. Waccamaw, Battery Creek, that's the other game that we were saying. Andrews taking on Mullins. An all-area matchup for News 13 Blitz fans. But Andrews hitting the road, and that's not too intriguing of a matchup, but I think that's one that's up in the air.
I don't want to demean either one of these teams, but this is a perfect example of what we were talking about. You've got a 2-8 team going to a 3-7 team in Andrews and Mullins. As far as every team getting into the playoffs, it really kind of forces you to get into the second round of the playoffs before you start talking about what you can achieve with it. So, just circling it back to our beginning conversation.
Our whining at the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's just, before we wrap things up, let's kind of throw out a surprise team about who you think's going to be playing in the final week. Whether it's Class A a day after Thanksgiving or a week after Thanksgiving in the state title game. How many do you think we're eventually going to have? And do you think we get any state champions this year? Matt, you want to start?
I mean, I don't want to jinx anybody. I really think Soxie's got a good chance with the way the bracket lines up and the way that they're playing right now. Not to be a homer or anything, I just really think they do.
You think they have the best chance out of any Grand Strand team? I mean, some people would say Myrtle Beach.
Myrtle Beach is a perennial team that can go the distance. I mean, they've proven that over time. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were there as well. So.
There's a lot of people watching this on the Grand Strand. They're probably dreaming of a rematch between Myrtle Beach and Socastee. That would be a lower state final game. And I tell you what, I'm going to throw it out there right now. I think Myrtle Beach has a better chance of getting to the lower state finals than Socastee.
I think so too. I mean, just simply they don't have to play Hartsville. I mean, if Myrtle Beach can get through this week and the seeds hold, they play Hanahan, a team that is 9-1 going into the playoffs, but who doesn't have another team in its region that had a winning record. They also did not play anybody in non-region schedule. I mean, they get the #1 seed. They earned it. They did what they had to do in region play. But Myrtle Beach could get to the lower state semifinals, and then they win another game, and then all of a sudden they're in the lower state finals, and they're playing most likely either Socastee or Hartsville. If it does turn out to be Socastee, I think it's hard for any high school football team to beat another one twice in 1 year. They've already got the tape. They know exactly what they have to do. And, yeah, it's hard to do against Socastee. But, whereas all these other teams haven't seen it, they haven't played it, Myrtle Beach knows exactly what went wrong in that first game. I think they would have a very realistic shot of if that does happen, I think, of winning that second matchup.
So that's a 3A breakdown. 2A, Loris, they have a bye. They'll probably win their first-round matchup next week. Then they'll run into Dillon. Tough to take on the Wildcats. They gave them a game once, but I'm not quite sure they're going to be able to do that twice. Class A, Division I, Carvers Bay. I think they have a very good shot at making a run. Obviously, next week when they take on Johnsonville, as long as those two teams win, that will be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, that one will be at Carvers Bay this time too. Same as before. I mean, if you want to win that title, you got to beat a team that you already beat once before in the regular season. You got to do it again. I think this time it probably leans a little bit more towards Carvers Bay, simply because of what they have done since that season opening loss to Johnsonville.
Yeah, Johnsonville, they were up 23-0, I think, in that game, and then Carvers Bay fought all the way back to it, make it within one score, eventually losing. So, can you believe it? Went 17 minutes there.
Yep.
Solid.
We'll edit out our conversation and go back down to 16.
All right, that's all for the weekly web chat. He's Ian, Matt, I'm Jeff. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.